غرباء 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 غرباء.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Contemporary Fiqh Issues. We have with us again in the studio our special guest, Sheikh Asim bin Luqman al-Hakim. Sheikh Asim, welcome.
Jazakumullah khair, and thank you for having me.
Barakallahu feekum. Sheikh Asim is one of the well-known callers and du'at who has traveled extensively across the globe, giving da'wah and lectures to both Muslims and non-Muslims alike. Sheikh Asim, in the last episode, you were discussing with us and with the viewers the issue of insurance and the different types and what contract it falls into in terms of buying and selling, and why it's impermissible because of the issues of chance and uncertainty and how it resembles gambling. What about different types of insurance? For example, some people will say, well, what about insurance for life? I know I'm going to die. What about social insurance, medical insurance? Are these also impermissible?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bihudah. There is some similarity, and some of what you've mentioned is permissible, and some, which is the majority, is not. And let's start with the majority. Life insurance is not permissible because there is a great deal of uncertainty. There's also a great deal of riba in it, as mentioned before. And when you pay your monthly fees or your annual fees, the chance is that you may die instantly, just after writing the policy.
Alhamdulillah.
Yarhamukumullah.
Yahdikumullah.
And there is a possibility that the contract goes on until you're 80 years old, and you're still paying money. So the company made double or triple the profit they were hoping that you would give them. Therefore, it falls under the same category of uncertainty and of gambling.
What about social and medical? Same thing?
Medical insurance is the same thing, because you pay $1,000, you may end up by, not you, someone would end up by, God forbid, a cancer treatment that costs $100,000, or a bypass surgery, or a kidney transplant, or whatever, and it's extremely expensive. And there's a chance that the majority of people who are healthy people keep on living without any problem, and the company is getting richer and richer, and their money is down the drain. And in a survey in Germany, I believe, they said that what is returned to the people from what they pay to insurance companies does not exceed 3%.
SubhanAllah.
So the company is making 97% profit.
It's like we said in the last episode, like a casino. The house always wins. They wouldn't be doing this if they weren't collecting big sums of money.
This is a well-known fact. And in the last economical crunch, or what they call it, the recession, the reason of the recession was the collaboration between insurance companies and the banks. The banks sells houses to the people by mortgage, which is complex interest, which is riba, that is forbidden in Islam. It's not allowed in Islam.
Because of the harm it causes people, and because it devours the wealth of the people unlawfully.
And the price is not fixed. In Islam, you cannot sell something like this. And this is one of the beautiful aspects of transactions in Islam. If I sell you a product, the transaction is not valid until the final price is mentioned from the initial day before the contract is signed. But, for example, I sell you my house for X of money. No matter what happens, I can never ever add a penny over that amount which we signed for, whether the duration is 1 year or 100 years, because everything was stated in black and white. Elsewhere, it's not the same, because they go on and saying that it depends on inflation, it depends on the interest rate, and it depends whether you're late. If you're a month or two late in payment, we will add more interest to you. And it's being complex interests.
It's kind of like the mafia in a way. It's like it lacks that mercy and that human decency. If you can't pay on time, well, you know what? You're going to pay even more and even more. And every time you're late because you have trouble paying back what you owed initially, we're going to take even more from you. And you know what? If you can't pay after that, we're going to kick you out. We're going to seize your house, seize your property, and leave you with nothing.
This is the same act of Shylock and the Merchant of Venice. They'll take a piece of you in return for the money that you did not pay off. And this is what they had done. They forced people to foreclosure. They had to give and surrender their houses because they cannot pay for them. The banks were happy at the very beginning, and they started collecting these houses. But then the real estate prices went down, and the banks were stuck with houses, and all of their assets and money is out.
One of the reasons also is because the more people are getting kicked out of their house, the more the value of the neighborhood is going to go down.
And the insurance companies were related to the banks because also they were dealing in riba and investing in these banks. And then the insurance companies fell as well because they don't have money to pay. So it's a whole picture where
built on
they
evil and haram.
Yeah, they get richer and the poorer gets poorer. And Islamically, this is not allowed. This is concerning life insurance, medical insurance, property insurance. It's all the same. The concept is the same. Educational insurance, for example, it's the same thing. Now, when it comes to social insurance or the retirement benefits, it's a little bit different. And it depends from one country to the other. If it's government-run, then the social insurance or the retirement funds that they give to those who retire, it's from the government. And every citizen has right in what the government has. In the sense that it's one country.
It's the collective wealth of the country.
Yes, it's not for an individual. And that is why we call it the Baytul Mal in Islam, which is the treasury.
Yes.
The treasury in Muslim countries is responsible for their welfare. It's responsible for their medical treatment. It's responsible for their education. If one of them borrowed money and was unable to pay it back, and he was sincere in paying it back, and we look into his case and he doesn't have money to pay back, the treasury is supposed to pay it off.
Not push him in the corner and ask more and more from him. And
this is the Islamic way of treating your subjects.
Mercy and compassion.
And if we have access money, this would not be stored for the fortunate. It would be distributed among the people. So you focus on the infrastructure, you focus on the country, you focus on the welfare of the people. This is what Umar ibn Khattab used to do. May Allah be pleased with him.
We even find in some cases in the history of Islam that if they had an excess of money in the treasury, they would use it to help the youth get married.
Definitely true. And unfortunately, this is not being practiced nowadays. The richer gets rich and the poor gets poor. Social insurance, if being paid by the government, and if it is under the Islamic rules and laws, this is permissible for you to benefit from. Why? Because, again, I'm taking it from the government.
It's your own money in a sense.
Most countries do this, Islamic countries that I know of. They extract part of your income, like let's say 9%, and they force the company that you work for to pay a similar amount, which is another 9%, or the government itself invests and pays 9%, and they all put this in the organization where they invest it. The government does this investment. So at the end of the day, if the man retires or if the man dies,
or he gets sick, breaks a leg, or something happens that he can no longer work,
they give him compensation, they take care of his treatment, and they give him a monthly salary, or for his family after he dies. And This is Islamic. What is not Islamic, as in the case in countries like the States, the Europe, and Singapore, etc., where you work and you give this company money for your retirement.
It's a private company.
Yes. So you give them like 10, 15, 20%, depending on what the salary you want to be after you retire, and they invest the money. Whether they win or lose, it's their problem. They have a percentage that I'm giving them monthly, and I don't care if they win, make good deals, or lose, or be bankrupt. This is their problem. I have to get what we have agreed upon. This falls under forbidden insurance and forbidden transactions because it is based on gambling. It's a third party that has nothing to do with my welfare.
And they're basically profit-oriented. They're looking to make money out of it.
Yes, that's true.
Jazakallah khairan, ya Sheikh. We'd like to continue the discussion, but right after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We need to strive to know the ruling of the Sharia on a particular incident. Why scholars had to put a lot of effort trying to figure out how to give the ruling on such topics and issues. Islam tells you to look good, to smell good. The reason of the recession was the collaboration between insurance companies and the banks. Some scholars, though, stated that it is permissible for you to insure because you're compelled to do this by the government, by law, but you're not allowed to benefit from the insurance policy.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. Sheikh, just before the break, you were discussing with us the different types of insurances and why it's a social evil that causes so much harm to the people at large, Muslim and non-Muslim alike. You talked about different types of insurance, which types would be permissible if it wasn't profit-oriented. For example, some government institutions which protect the rights of people and look after them, let's say if they get sick or if, God forbid, if they die prematurely, leaving a family behind. But what about people who say, even if the contract is invalid, even if the contract is haram, we both agreed. I agree, the insurance company agrees. Why can't we do it?
Well, this is a justifiable allegation, sort of to speak, but in Islam, it's not only agreement. Because you can have two agreeing to kill one another in a feud, for example, and that does not make it permissible. You can have two agreeing on fornication. A prostitute and a man who pays money for his desire, this would not make it permissible in Islam, and it's not even legal. So the agreement between the two does not justify. You can have someone selling heroin for a junkie, and both are in agreement and they love each other, but this does not make it permissible. We have to go back to the roots, and we have to look at the fundamentals, the Quran and Sunnah. If this kind of transaction is approved, then it's legitimate. If not, even if there is an agreement between the two, it's still forbidden.
So even if the whole society agrees, even if it's legal in the society, your family agrees, your mother agrees, your father agrees, you agree, it's not a condition.
That's true.
The Muslim submits to Allah.
You have to go back to the fundamentals.
Barakallahu feekum, ya Shaykh. What about in cases, as we know, I'm not sure about in Muslim countries, but in Western countries, for example, there's a lot of cases where institutionally, with the government, for example, you're forced to have insurance. For example, when it comes to buying automobiles. Now, an automobile might not necessarily be obligatory to own. You're not harming yourself if you don't own one, but it's become a necessity of life. What about someone who can't get a car because they can't deal with insurance? What would be the solution in that case?
Well, scholars said that in cases of necessity, you can have insurance. If you're compelled, it's mandatory by law to have insurance, you can have insurance. But they differ in the result. So, for example, where I come from, it's mandatory to have a third-party insurance for your car. So we pay this. We pay like $100 annually. And if an accident happens, the company pays the third party. So whoever had damages, they'll pay him off, but they'll not fix my car.
Okay.
This is mandatory. If you don't do it, they'll fine you, and they'll not renew your driving license, your car license, etc. So scholars came up with an opinion stating that this is permissible because you're forced. It's like a person stranded in the desert and is about to die, he is starving to death, and he finds a dead meat or a donkey's meat, which is not permissible to eat. But because of necessity, it becomes halal.
What's the proof, though, from the Quran or from the Sunnah that in cases of necessity you can do these things?
فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. Whoever is compelled by necessity, and he is not going into extravagant, he's not going over it.
So if he's thirsty and dying of thirst and he has this bottle of champagne in front of him, he's not drinking at all. He's just drinking just enough to survive.
Yes, yet with the bottle of champagne, Shafi'i, may Allah have mercy on his soul, said that even though you're going to die out of thirst, it's not permissible to you to drink champagne or wine because it's going to make you thirstier. It's going to add to your thirst.
Okay, so we have to look also medically if it's going to actually help. Like
Yes.
someone who might be dying of thirst in the desert, for example, he doesn't know that specific ruling or the scientific evidence behind it. He just thinks that he's going to die of thirst, and if he doesn't drink this, he's going to die. He wouldn't be sinful in drinking it.
No, but he would be sinful in having a feast over it.
Yes.
So if he's having like a toast and finishing the whole bottle,
Giving himself cheers. And
yeah, this is definitely not the case, because it's only as part of the necessity. And that is why some scholars, though stated that it is permissible for you to insure, because you're compelled to do this by the government, by law, but you're not allowed to benefit from the insurance policies. Meaning that I paid $100 and then I had an accident, and the company, the insurance company, compensated me with $500. These scholars say that I'm allowed to take only $100 that I paid, and the $400 I have to give to charity.
And would this be the more correct opinion in your?
This is one opinion. The second opinion states that this is not logical. Though I did not agree on this contract, but the companies are getting richer and richer. And by law, because I was compelled by government laws to insure, then if I was compensated for something that happened to me, that this would only be fair because I was not in agreement with it, and I'm compelled to pay. So why wouldn't I be compelled to take? And when you look at it from a logical point of view, I did not go into this transaction with my own will. I'm forced to do it. And the companies are getting richer and richer. So if I say, well, listen, I'm not going to take the money, I'm not going to benefit of it, it's coming without me asking. It is exactly like medical insurance. In most companies, by law, you have to have medical insurance. So if I don't have medical insurance, they're not going to employ me. And if they employ me and I make medical insurance policies and then don't benefit of it, I'm just spending money down the drain.
So what about a company, for example, that won't hire you unless you have you have the credentials, you're qualified for the job, but they just won't hire you unless you have this one aspect of insurance, which is haram, as you discussed. Can you fake a paper and lie about it in order to avoid doing that haram deed?
Some scholars say that it is permissible to do such a thing. I follow the opinion that says you cannot lie at all, whether to Muslims or non-Muslims alike. You are a Muslim, and one of the characteristics of a Muslim is being truthful. Now, I acknowledge the fact that they would not allow me to get the job without this insurance policy. But faking such a paper is not the way out, because I'll be lying to them.
But isn't lying a lesser sin than involving yourself in gambling, for example?
If there is no other way out, if all companies deal in this fashion, well, I have to do it. But if it's only A, B, or C companies,
Then you can go look for another job.
yes. So if it's the trend in the company, if it's the government trend, then I am forced to do this. And I go with the opinion that, yes, because I'm compelled, I may benefit from the medical insurance or from the car insurance, because it's compelled. It's something that I did not do with my own will. So there's no reason why to pay them and not to benefit from them after if this takes place. But some people go to a little bit more extreme. So if the company tells them that you're a B-class insurance, they say, okay, if I'm compelled to pay, I'll pay the B-class, but I'd like to get an upgrade into A. So I'll pay extra money to
And
get
now
better.
Now they're going beyond what they've been forced to do.
Yes, this is, again, becomes haram. It's not permissible.
Assalamu alaikum, ya Sheikh. We mentioned then briefly, like you can look for other jobs. If you have the opportunity to look for another job, then you're compelled to do so. Which brings us to the next point, that a lot of Muslims now, we deal with transactions, we deal with import and export. And for these issues specifically, it's almost impossible to deal with these jobs, which are widespread, without involving yourself in insurance. So what's the answer for this? If everyone's doing it, if it's so widespread, can we involve ourselves in it?
Okay. That's a good question, because Muslims should not be reactive.
Shouldn't be sheep.
They should be proactive. Why wait until a problem happens? You always have to give solutions ahead of time. So those who say insurance is haram, they're right. But when you tell the people, the whole country, the whole nation, sit down, don't work, don't trade, don't have any commerce, don't import, don't export, because all of this needs insurance, then you're actually hurdling the process of progress in the ummah. So what's the answer? Some say, let's deal with conventional commercial insurance, because we would like to progress. This is not the way out. The way out is to have an alternative, an Islamic alternative. And this is funny, because every time someone comes up with the concept of Islamic solution, you'll find that it is un-Islamic but being sugar-coated.
Presented as Islam.
Yes. Well, we have an Islamic solution which is called a cooperative insurance. And the concept of it is cooperation, donation, not anticipation of something to come in return for you. 1,000 person, they collaborate, they come, and they say, listen, let's make a wallet and put into it X amount of money. So everyone puts $1,000, $100,000 or whatever, and they collect a huge amount of money. And they agree upon themselves, whoever has a calamity, a problem, a crisis, and needs to be compensated, we will give him from this wallet.
Basically, it's like a community zakah kind of, a community charity to take care of who needs to be taken care of.
Sort of. It's not a zakah.
Not a zakah, but...
Okay? And at the end of the day, and this is the difference between it and the conventional way of dealing. If the conventional insurance company was faced with a crisis where, for example, we have tremendous earthquakes and volcanoes and burnings and fires that consumed everything, they're compelled to pay. But they don't have the money to pay. It's not my problem. They would borrow from banks with interest, and they would do this and that, all haram things, to give them the money. In cooperative insurance, it's not like this. The minute the money runs out from the wallet, we apologize to those who come and claim. Say, listen, we ran out of money. So either the members inject more or tough luck. This is it. You have no right to say, but I paid my share. Because this is cooperative. It's a form of donation. The tricky thing is that you have to really be careful on what you call an Islamic cooperative insurance from the others, because so many Islamic cooperative insurance companies claim to be Islamic and they're not.
They're taking advantage of the Muslims' need for this.
How do they do this? They take your money and they say this is cooperative insurance, and they go to conventional insurance companies with a lesser 20% or 30% fees, and they insure.
SubhanAllah.
So they take the money, they get richer, they give bonuses to their managers, they're investing money, the stockholders get richer, and it becomes out of context. It doesn't become cooperative anymore. It becomes profit-making company, exactly like the conventional one.
Barakallahu feekum, ya Shaykh. So what we understand basically from this is that insurance in general, because it deals with chance, it deals with uncertainty, it deals with riba, it deals with many things, usury, many things that are considered major sins, gambling, that the Muslim should avoid it at all costs, unless in cases of necessity. In such a case, the Muslim is not responsible.
And they have the
and then you have the alternative, but we have to be careful when approaching that alternative that it's in fact genuine.
That's true.
Jazakallah khairan, ya Shaykh. We'd love to continue, but unfortunately we're just out of time. Join us again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.